I never planned to stay in Barrow Creek. It was a stopover, a place to dry off after the rains chased me down from Montana, boots soaked and hat limp, nothing in my pockets but lint and one old photograph. But you know how it goes. A town like that, slow and aching with old stories, has a way of putting roots under your heels when you're not paying attention. The widow was the reason I stayed. First time I saw her, she was digging. Not planting, not burying, just digging. Hands bare, dress hem soaked in red clay, her face set with a kind of patience that scared me more than any grief ever could. Barrow Creek didn't say much about her, only that her husband went off hunting deer the winter before last and came back in pieces. She lived in the house with the leaning porch and the chimney that never smoked. Folks said she lit a fire once, and the flames hissed like they were drowning. Others said she hadn't spoken since the funeral. But I heard her hum once, walking past the church at dusk. A low, tuneless hum, like she was feeling for something in the dark. They called her Mercy, Mercy Bell. It was a cruel name, or maybe just a hopeful one, because whatever she carried, it didn't look like mercy to me. It looked like I was waiting. I rented a room above the old general store. The walls bled cold through the boards, and the roof whistled when the wind got up. But it had a window that looked down over the hollow where her house slumped into the hillside. Some nights I'd see her silhouette in the upstairs window, still as a nailed cross. No candle, no lantern, just her and the dark. One night, I was coming back from the saloon, boots muddied, hands raw from helping dig out a stuck wagon down by the bend. The moon was thin, silver like a bent coin. I caught sight of her on the road ahead, walking barefoot, holding something bundled in cloth. I didn't call out, I just followed. She didn't look back once. We walked past the church, the cemetery, the split fence where the coyotes came through last winter. She stopped at the old well behind the abandoned schoolhouse. That well had been dry since the fever took the preacher and half the children. She stood there a long time, then laid the bundle on the stones. I never meant to speak, but my voice found its way out, quiet as a prayer. You ain't gonna throw that down there, are you? She turned. Her eyes weren't wild or afraid. Just tired, she said. It already fell. I stepped closer. The cloth had unwrapped just enough to show the corner of a mirror, silver-backed, cracked down the middle. What's it showing you? I asked. She looked back down. Not me. From then on, I watched her, not in the way of a man looking for something pretty to pass the time. This was different. She carried silence the way others carry scars. And her house, well, it began to do things. Lights flickered without flame. Doors creaked open at dawn, though she never left them unlatched. The wind blew only around her porch, never across it. One morning I found every crow in town perched on her roof, heads tilted east like they were waiting on a signal. By then, people had started to whisper, said she was summoning. Said her husband's bones never made it past the hill. I didn't believe in much, back then. I'd seen too much to believe, and not enough to forget. But Mercy made me wonder if some things aren't meant to be believed, just lived through. The day I spoke to her again was the day well filled. I woke to the sound of water. Not rain, this was deeper, steady, like the earth itself had started breathing. I followed the sound back to that schoolhouse well, and there she was, staring down into it like it held all the answers she couldn't bear to ask. You bring it back? I asked. No, she said. It came on its own. I looked down. The water was black, still, and the reflection it gave wasn't mine. I stepped back. What's down there? She turned, voice almost kind. Whatever you lost, I should have left. Should have packed my bag and rode west until Barrow Creek was a smear in the dust. But I didn't. I helped her carry the mirror back to her house. She never asked, never said thank you. Just held the door open while I crossed her threshold, and in that moment, I knew I wouldn't leave. Mercy didn't speak for a week after that morning at the well. Not out of grief, I think. Not even relief. More like reverence. As if something sacred had passed, not just her husband's lingering spirit, but the part of herself that had clung to the question of him. She moved slower, not weaker, more deliberate. Every motion carried memory. She no longer avoided the parlor where the mirror sat. In fact, she cleaned it, polished the glass until the crack in the center gleamed like a silver crescent. I asked why she kept it. It's not his anymore, she said. It's mine now. I didn't know what that meant then. I do now. One afternoon, a letter came. No return address. Just my name scrawled in ink too neat to be old. too shaky to be young. Inside was a single sentence. "You're the last one now." I showed it to Mercy. She read it once. Folded it. Burned it. "I was afraid of that," she said. "What's it mean?" "Only what it says." I didn't take anything. I never crossed a line. She looked at me then, not with pity, not even sympathy. Just recognition. "You stayed," she said. "That's enough." That night, the birds didn't roost. They circled overhead long after dusk, shadows against a cloudless sky. Crows, ravens, maybe something else. Their calls sounded like laughter with no breath in it. Mercy stood in the doorway with her lantern unlit. "They've begun the counting," she said. Of what? Regret. There was no sleep that night. The walls of the house seemed thinner somehow. I could hear the groans of the floorboards upstairs even though we were both downstairs. The mirror, though wrapped again in cloth and leaned face first into the corner, pulsed, not with light, but with attention, as though it knew it wasn't done. Around midnight, Mercy stirred from her chair. She didn't speak, didn't look my way. Just stepped barefoot into the night. I followed. She walked up the ridge where the first settlers buried their dead. The ground was hard there, more stone than soil, and every headstone was cracked in the same corner, as though time had picked a favorite wound. She stopped before one without a name. "Kneel," she said. I did. She placed her hand on my shoulder. It was warm, alive. And then she said something that shook me more than all the silence that had come before. "You are always going to die here. You just didn't know it yet." I looked up at her. "I don't understand." "You will. When you see what comes through." She stepped back. The ground beneath that nameless stone cracked, not open, not down, but sideways. Like the world was splitting not to bury, but to let something out. It was not a grave that opened that night. It was a memory. One not mine, not Mercy's, older than both of us. Older than Barrow Creek, older than the soil beneath it. From that crack in the earth came sound soft, rhythmic, like wind through reeds. But beneath it, a pulse. A low hum that matched no heartbeat I've ever known. I wanted to run. But my knees stayed sunk in the dirt, hands trembling. Mercy stood unmoved. "It's the other witness," she whispered. "The what?" "There are things that keep record. Things that remember when we forget. This place, this ground, it's one of them." From the seam in the ground, a light began to bleed upward. Not bright, not pure. It shimmered like old film, flickering through the ages. And in it, I saw Mercy, as a child, watching her mother whisper to a stone. Her husband, standing at this same spot, alone and shaking. Me, arriving in Barrow Creek, stopping by this ridge without knowing why. "The land binds stories to itself," she said. "And tonight, it writes the last line." The crack sealed as quietly as it had opened. Mercy helped me to my feet. I felt older, not tired, just concluded. "What now?" I asked. "We go home," she said. "And wait for the forgetting." The mirror, when we returned, was no longer cracked. It showed us both, not as we were but as we would be. And we sat, and watched, and waited. The forgetting didn't come like sleep. It didn't fall gently or slow. It peeled, layer by layer, like bark off an old tree. The memories stripped themselves from the walls, from our hands, from the mirror. Names faded first, then faces, then time. But not everything left. Some things, it turns out, choose to remain. Mercy stopped speaking again, not in silence this time, but in stillness. Like her voice had traveled somewhere else, someplace it was more needed. She moved through the house like smoke, brushing past rooms without touching the floor, opening doors that never closed again. The birds returned. But different, no cause, no beating wings. Just the weight of them on rooftops and fence posts, waiting, watching. They didn't move when I walked past. Just tilted their heads, as if remembering. I tried to write it down, all of it. Names, dates, what we saw on the ridge, what the mirror showed. But the ink wouldn't hold. Pages came up blank before the words were dry. Like the truth itself was being unraveled from the inside out. One night, Mercy stood at the threshold again, lantern in hand but this time lit. The flame inside didn't flicker. It burned steady, white, like a star brought to close. "They've started the choosing," she said. "Choosing what? Who gets to forget? And who has to stay behind to remember?" She looked at me, and in her eyes I saw no fear. Only mercy, real mercy, not the name she wore. "I can't leave," she said. "But you might. might. If they think you'll remember the right parts. That night, I dreamed of the ridge. But it wasn't the one I knelt on. It was older, no stones, just earth and echo. A woman stood there tall, cloaked in crows, her face hidden behind a veil of wind. She held out her hand, and in it was my photograph. The one from my pocket the day I arrived, worn soft at the edges. You left something here, she said. When I woke, the photo was gone. In its place, beside the bed, was the mirror, whole, silver, quiet, and in its face, not me, not Mercy, a house, empty, waiting. Spring turned the hills green, but Barrow Creek didn't thaw with it. The people moved quieter, like whatever had passed through us hadn't left. It had just stepped behind a curtain. Mercy took to writing. Not letters, she said. There was no one left worth writing to but symbols. Circles within circles. Marks that looked like weather patterns or constellations not born yet. She'd sit at the table for hours, pen scratching slow and constant like a beetle carving bark. I asked her once what it meant. It's what the mirror showed me, she said. Before it is forgotten, because the mirror, like all things, had turned quiet. It still reflected, sure, but only what you expected to see. No more flickers of other lives, no more questions in the glass. Just your face, and whatever guilt clung to it. I burned the photograph I carried, not out of hate, just acceptance. Some stories don't belong in pockets. They belong to earth or fire. Mercy began tending the garden. For the first time in years, vegetables took root. The soil, once thin as dust, grew thick and black, like it had been turned inside out and fed by memory. I think it's done, she told me one evening, wiping her hands on her apron. What is the telling, the watching? It's all been said. You sure? No, she said. But I'm tired. That night, the crows left. All of them. Not in a frenzy, just a silent exodus across the moon, never to return. Their absence left a weight in the air, like the silence after a final note played too long. I woke to find Mercy sitting by the mirror, dressed for travel, though I knew she wasn't going anywhere. Her eyes were dry, but rimmed with knowing. Something else is coming, she said. Something kind. I didn't ask what. I didn't need to. We held hands as the dawn came, and in the mirror, one last vision flickered. Barrow Creek, years from now. Children laughing. The house is whole. Our chairs empty? The forgetting came not like a storm, but like morning dew, soft, inevitable, gracious. I walked the ridge one last time. The stone without a name now bore words, carved in a script I didn't recognize, but understood. He remembered enough. The earth no longer whispered. It had spoken. It told our story. I found Mercy asleep in the chair by the window. Her hand still clutched the last page of her notes. I didn't wake her. I sat beside her and let the light wash over us both. A traveler passed through Barrow Creek some years later. Said he found an empty town, clean and waiting. Said the general store still had canned peaches on the shelf. Said he felt watched but not feared. He left with a story. And now, so do you. Because if you're hearing this, you're the next one. Barrow Creek remembers. And now, so must you.